Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Steve, and welcome to a newer video, something I haven't really done before. This is going to be a two-part series, I don't know what to call it, but I'm basically doing a tier list of the Origin mod, which breaks down all the races of this mod pack that I'm going to be playing in the future. So I would like to do a mod pack review of OriginsSMP, which is my next mod pack that is planned. But the big cornerstone, the foundation, the rock, whatever you want to call it, of this mod pack is the Origin mod, which lets you pick a race and class when you start the world. Now, I can't just brush over the races and classes because they are way too important. They all have upsides, downsides. They change so much of how you play the game. I can't just brush over it in the video, so I'm doing a separate one. If you're familiar with the Origin mod and you're familiar with what all the races do, that's great. If you're not, don't fear. I'm going to go over all of them and going to explain why I rate each race where they are. That sounds really bad, but I'm talking about Minecraft mod here. Anyway, I have the client pulled up here, so let's take a look at the first race. So before we get started, let me explain. I've been playing, obviously, this mod pack for a while, and ergo this mod Origins for a while. So I'm pretty familiar with most, if not all, of these races and what they do. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew and say something that I'm not going to do, but there should be little gameplay clips of what each of these races do during this video as well, because as I said, I've played most of them. So if it's hard for me to put something into words, you should see a little 5-second clip of what it looks like in the background. So it's a standard tier list, right? There's S, A, B, but there's also two other tiers that are a little different. There's PvP and Trash, because there are some races that are just not great for a solo single-player survival experience, and I wouldn't recommend them if you're playing single-player. If you're playing with friends and you play into PvP a lot, there's definitely some top-tier ones, and so the PvP will kind of be its own list. There'll be a top and bottom of PvP. I don't have to explain what S and A and B means, but they're all kind of around here. There's no C, there's no D, there is Trash. Okay, there's some that are just terrible, and we're going to start off with one that is just terrible. The first one we're going to look at is Human. So let me break down what you're looking at right now. You're looking at the race selection screen. It's basically a breakdown of what every race is, and the triple dots up here show the impact. So if 1 dot is filled, the impact is low, 2 medium, 3 high. The Human, as you can see, is your ordinary Minecraft experience. There is nothing special. This is an absolute trash tier. There's no... Why would you play this mod if you're going to pick a Human, right? Is it necessarily trash? Honestly, it's pretty bad. All the races have a pretty decent upside and maybe a very small downside. The Human has no advantages or disadvantages. If you were in PvP, survival, whatever, you're just usually at a disadvantage. Look, the Origin mod wasn't made for you to pick Human. That's why it's going in trash tier. The next race we're going to look at, this little guy here, is the Avian race. And you can see now we have a green circle and 1 out of 3 filled, which means the impact is low, which means this is a lightweight class, no pun intended, and it's easy to kind of figure out how it works. I'm going to skip the synopses of all of these races because that's just lore, so you can read that if you'd like. I'm just going to go strictly to the advantages and disadvantages. So if you ever played the morph mod before, the Avian is kind of like morphing into a chicken. You fall gently, you take no fall damage, right? Every block you fall super slow, and you can kind of glide around like a chicken would. That's what its first passive is, Featherweight. Its second passive, which is kind of a disadvantage, is when sleeping, your bed needs to be at an altitude of at least 86 blocks. Is that a big issue? Not really. It just basically means you can't live on sea level. You need to live on a mountain, you need to live on an elevated surface. 86 blocks isn't too bad. So that's the first kind of disadvantage of the Avian race. The next advantage is Tailwind. It's basically like Speed 1. You just run a little quicker on the ground than other races. I don't know if this is a positive. I don't know if this is a negative. When you wake up in the morning, you lay an egg. So you can take that as you will. But this is definitely downside vegetarian. You can't digest any meat. So you can't eat steak, you can't eat pork, you can't eat lamb chops. In my opinion, meat is the easiest food to eat in Minecraft. So this could be a disadvantage for sure for some people because you have to plant a garden and, you know, vegetables and potatoes and stuff don't really fill up a lot. So yeah, you can take that as you will. So in my experience, the Avians are B, and I will move these accordingly because there's going to be more of B, but for right now, I'm throwing it just kind of right here. The Avians belong in B tier for me because they're basically a race that takes no fall damage and you run a little bit quicker. The disadvantages are absolutely manageable, but it's not a huge gameplay change. You're not like, oh my god, that guy's an Avian. That guy, oh my, you can tell he's oh, it's so impactful. Not really. If this is your first time playing the mod pack or the mod, this might be a good choice. And this was my first choice because it's very easy to understand and it's very low impact. The benefits aren't really high, and also the downsides aren't really high. So it's just middle of the road for me. Okay, the next race we're going to look at, which is this guy right here, which is Arachnid. Again, some of you may already be able to tell that this is just a spider. You're able to climb up any kind of wall, not just ladders. So if it's a flat surface, you can just climb up it. It's like having ladders on everything. Master of Webs is pretty interesting. And to me, this is a heavy, like PvP centered passive. You navigate cobweb perfectly and you're able to climb in them. Who cares? That doesn't really do anything. This is big though. When you hit an enemy in melee range, they get stuck in a cobweb for a while. So that's pretty interesting. That means if you're getting overrun, it's a 2v1 and you tap them both with anything, just your fist, whatever, they get stuck in a cobweb and you can just run away. In a PvE sense, this is okay too. Like you can, if a creeper's chasing you, just freeze it in a cobweb pretty much. So it's a nice ability. It's mainly combat oriented though. This part's kind of interesting too, but it's definitely for PvP or like a server environment multiplayer. This next part is interesting, but I don't know how useful it is, right? If it's not a spider, so if you're not an arachnid or a spider and something goes in the cobweb, you can see it. You can see like a kind of outline, or you get to know kind of where they are. You can also craft cobweb from string. I don't know if that's important, but I guess it's very important to this class to be able to craft cobweb on demand. Carnivore, your diet is restricted to meat. You can't eat vegetables. I see that as not really a disadvantage because that's pretty much all I eat when I play Minecraft anyway. Fragile, you have 3 less hearts of health than humans. Now that's a big deal because you can see up here, you can climb any kind of wall, not just ladders. So if you've ever played the Morph mod before and you played a spider, if there's a block above you, if it's not a completely flat surface and you hit a block, you fall off and you have 3 less hearts of health. So you can die. You can like kill yourself by accidentally going up a tree and hitting a leaf and falling off. Fragile is a great word for what this is. Also, you get the vibes really that this is like a PvP class, especially Master of Webs, very heavy PvP, and then Fragile 3 less hearts than humans is pretty big. Like that's a huge downside for PvP and PvE, just combat in general. So for me, the Arachnids are going to go into the PvP category because I definitely see that's what they're better at. For single player, there's better choices. This is definitely you're going up with your boys. You're gonna live in a cave and you're gonna put spider webs everywhere to slow down the enemies, kill them all inside the caves. You know, that'd be pretty cool. In single player though, that's not really it's not impactful enough for single player in my opinion. That's why the Arachnids go into PvP, and they're at the top of PvP right now because there's nothing in there, but that will change soon because the next class we have is this bad boy right here, which is the Elytrians. So the first passive is you have Elytra wings without needing to equip any, so you just always have an Elytra wing. The next one, which is a crazy passive, is every 30 seconds you're able to launch about 20 blocks up into the air. So this is the very first active ability we're seeing. And all the ones we've done before, these are just passives. These are just things that naturally happen. This Gift of the Winds is the first active ability, which means you have to press a button on your keyboard to get this to happen. By default, that keybind is G. I've rebound it, but if you're downloading the mod pack or the mod, it's G by default. That's a pretty long cooldown. Every 30 seconds, you're able to launch about 20 blocks up into the air, which obviously synergizes very well with the Elytra wings. Aerial Combatant, you deal substantially more damage while in Elytra flight. So this is what makes me think it's more about PvP. High maneuverability and high damage. If you're good with the Elytra wings, you are destroying the battlefield. Now that seems really good, right? Too good to be true. Now we're going to get to the disadvantages. Need for mobility. You cannot wear any heavy armor. Armor with protection values higher than chainmail. You can't wear anything higher than chainmail, so your armor is going to be pretty light. Disadvantage for PvP, right? Claustrophobia. This is a disadvantage for, like, a lot, like mining, right? Which makes me think it's more like PvP. Being somewhere with a low ceiling for too long will weaken you and make you slower. That basically means it makes mining exponentially harder. So this is really good for PvP, staying above ground. You know, you might have some other friends who are different races who might be better at mining than you are, but you basically cannot go underground. If you do, you will be weaker and just slower. You'll be slower moving, you'll have mining fatigue, all that stuff just being underground. So this is a huge disadvantage for just being underground. The last one is brittle bones. You take more damage from falling and flying into blocks. So if you're good with the Elytra, this shouldn't be a problem for you. But it's definitely a skill ceiling. Like if you're good, this disadvantage shouldn't matter that much. If you're bad, this might not be. I'm not good with the Elytra wings, right? I'm terrible. So you could definitely feel it. You can feel the extra damage, especially when you don't have the extra armor as well. So you can definitely feel that. So this is the second PvP race, and we're gonna see it goes below Arachnid, and I will explain why I think it's worse than Arachnid. Think of a battle between these two, right? The Arachnids thrive underground. They are probably the best race if you're living in caves. You can set up traps. You can get, you know, if you got boys that are, you know, your friends and they're all spiders, you can go through the webs, no problem. Other people are going to have a really hard time navigating through caves, abandoned mine shafts, stuff like that. So if you thought, if there's a battle between these two and the Arachnids stayed underground, they would win 10 times out of 10, no question. Because the Elytrians, or whatever they're called, these guys get way weaker when they're underground. They just get debuffs. Whereas the Arachnids don't actually get debuffs when they're outside. So if there's a battle outside in the open fields, the Arachnids, especially if they hit these guys, they slow them and put them in cobwebs and you can't jump out of it. These guys would actually beat the Elytrians. It's probably the Elytrians are favored like 6 out of 10 times, but the Arachnids could definitely hold their own outside. If this is a PvP battle between these two, I think the Arachnids would win. Let's jump into the next one, which is Shulk, which is really interesting. I actually really like the design of this one. So you get an extra 9 inventory slots, and those inventory slots stay with you on death. So you can put valuables in there, you can put whatever you want in there, you have no worry about losing those when you die. And that's a special Shulker inventory passive. Sturdy skin. We're going to see this one a few times. This is a pretty common one for the races to have, which is even without wearing armor, your skin provides natural protection. I think it's decent. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the armor values, but I would say this is around iron. Like just maybe a little worse than iron. It's very good. Like you don't need armor with sturdy skin for a while. Like there's obviously upgrades like diamond and the new netherite stuff, but it's very efficient early, very, very good. So strong arms, you're strong enough to break natural stones without using a pickaxe. Natural stones means stones that aren't placed by other people. I'm going to put a clip on screen so you can see what it's like. It's not super fast, so you do probably want to switch to like an iron pickaxe when you get that chance, and it's just natural stones, right? So you can basically skip the wooden pickaxe and you could just go straight for a cobblestone pickaxe. It's a small advantage. There's no downside to this, really. So I don't have a problem with it. Unwieldy. The way your hands are formed provide no way for holding a shield upright. So for PvP, big disadvantage. That is not good at all. Not having a shield can be pretty bad, especially against like the super mobile PvP races we've seen before. Not being able to protect yourself from attacks from like above, like with bows or whatever. Like very, it's kind of like this race is kind of like a tanky race. Large appetite. You exhaust much quicker than others, thus requiring you to eat more. So that's pretty bad for PvP, like fighting. But for single player, you know, there's no restrictions, right? There's no vegetarian, no carnivore, so you can eat whatever you want. You just need to have a lot of food on you. So this is like, in my opinion, probably like the tanky race. If you're trying to go for like a tank, someone who can take a lot, this is it. It also synergizes well with the 9 slots of inventory. If you're tanky, you're the first one to die. And you get to keep your inventory slots, so you could just keep stuff in there, get ready to go for the next fight right away. You don't have to gear up again. Okay, so in my opinion, the Shulk race does not have enough PvP advantages to be considered to go in here. In my mind, you're playing this as mainly a single player or PvE race. I think the Shulk is B tier as well, and I think it's a little bit better than Avian. Just because it's more useful. Like, not taking fall damage is great, but these guys have sturdy skin. They have more inventory, which is so nice, right? Just having extra 9 slots of inventory that keep on death too. So you can put your valuables in there and go mining and you don't really have an issue. Strong arms, you know, It's not necessarily useful, but also very mining oriented. You run out of fuel or you run out of durability on the pickaxe, you just switch to your fist and punch through the stones. That's pretty sick. The only downsides are unwieldy and large appetite. I think they're definitely manageable for single player. I don't even use the shield when I do, like when I can use the shield. I don't even use it. So I don't think it's a huge disadvantage at all. So that's why I think it belongs at the top of B tier for now, and we'll see what happens. The next race we're going to take a look at is right there, and that is the Snowman. So this is the second active ability we're going to see. So the primary ability is to cover the water with a thin sheet of ice, which means, as you, I'm sure, can interpret, you can basically put ice out everywhere in front of you if there's water, right? Pretty self-explanatory. Ice speed, use the slipperiness of ice to your advantage and gain extra speed, faster on the ice. Ice balls, you imbue your snowballs with harder ice particles, making them do more damage on hit. I don't know how much damage these do, but it's not really that much. The red enemy, fire and lava do 2 times the damage to you. Nether phobia, the unbearable temperatures of the nether cause damage to you over time. Boys, I'm sorry, but this might be another trash tier. Like, how rare is this, right? How rare is it that you live in a glacial biome? And if you live in a glacial biome, like someone with a lot of ice, how rare is that? Like, there's no real materials in the frost biomes. Like, I don't know. I think this is super niche. It's very rare that I think this would do any good. You take double damage from lava and fire damage, and there are classes that shoot fireballs at you, like the Blaze class and the Wyvern, I think. They shoot fireballs at you. You just take double damage from those. So 2 of them could kill you with like iron armor. Just 2 shots. The fact that your snowballs do extra damage, it would have to be substantial. It would have to be like a lot. It's just, I don't know. This is something that I only see myself ever playing if like I'm playing with friends and we're just trying to like run it down and like just have fun and like, but I honestly myself, this would be a nuisance to do in like single player or multiplayer. So for that reason, the Snowman goes in trash tier, but it goes above Steve, and it just goes above the default human because that is the worst. Like, why would you play this if you're just gonna play human? Okay, so for Creeper, this is the very first medium impact class or race, sorry, that we're going to take a look at. The last one we looked at is Snowman, is low, and you can see now it's a yellow dots, which means the impact is medium. The first ability creepers have, which means you can activate it, is you have an ability to create a small explosion, and it doesn't blow up blocks, but it does a good amount of damage. This is a really good ability. It can one-shot most things. I'll show some gameplay of it going on in the background. It's a very strong ability. It's very useful. I think this is one of the better abilities that any race has. Okay, I say this with insider knowledge. This is a mistake. This isn't supposed to be here. The next race is Feline, which is the cat-like experience goes here because it doesn't make sense. Creepers are scared of you, and you are a creeper. So that's a mistake. That should not be there. So I'm just going to skip past it. Creeper genes, you're a slight shade of green. It's not really a real disadvantage, but I guess it is. Like, that's one they did. Cats. Now, this is the disadvantage. Being in the radius of a cat or an ocelot will do damage to you over time. I believe that counts for Feline as well, which is a race. So, very rare, right? How often do you see cats or an ocelot, right? Very rare that this ever comes into play. The only time this would really do something in PvP is if you're facing a feline, where you just start taking damage over time. For me, I think creepers are probably top tier for PvP, for fighting other people. I'm going to put them for now at the top of PvP. They are so strong. They don't really have any disadvantages, and their disadvantage is very niche. For single player, this doesn't blow up blocks, which kind of sucks. For like mining, if you wanted to blow up a huge area, that'd be huge for single player, but it doesn't really do anything for single player. I don't know. In my opinion, this is pretty unimpactful for single player, but against other players in PvP and stuff like that, this is probably the best or one of the best races right now. The next race, as you can probably tell, we are going to be looking at Feline. So felines are basically like cats. So you never take fall damage no matter from which height you fall. It's pretty cool. Strong ankles, you're able to jump higher by jumping while sprinting. I'll show a clip of the background of how high you jump, so you can interpret that as you will. 9 lives, you have 1 less heart of health than humans. That's funny, right? Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's post-edit Steve here. I'm almost done the video, but I wanted to pop in because what I'm talking about here is just wrong. So for the feline ability, it's actually the exact opposite of what I thought. You can only mine stone if it's on its own or it's touching one other piece of stone. If the natural stone block is touching 2 or more pieces of stone, you cannot break it. You can break ore just like you normally could, that's no problem, but mining is much more difficult than I would have thought. I'm still keeping it the same place it is on the tier list because I still think it's really, really good. It's kind of a bizarre ability, but you can definitely work around it. It's just kind of annoying if you were to strip mine or something like that. Cat-like appearance. Creepers are scared of you and will only explode if you attack them first. That's a PvE that doesn't apply to PvP because the player controls when they explode, but it's nice for single player. Nocturnal. You can slightly see in the dark when not in water. So that's pretty cool. Being in the water as a feline is a disadvantage, but they kind of just threw it into this one. So you have night vision, but when you're in the water, you don't. So it's not really that big of a downside. It's more of a positive effect here. For me, I actually think feline is the first A tier for single player. I think it has a lot of advantages for single player where you don't really use them that much in PvP. Acrobatics, never taking fall damage is awesome. Jumping higher than normal is awesome too. One less heart, yeah, that kind of sucks, but it's definitely like, you can work with that. That's not a problem. Weak arms is weird. But I haven't found I ran into this issue that much because when you break stone, and there's adjacent stone blocks to it, which aka mining is fine. But if you were trying to build your house out of stone as a cat and you misplaced one and you tried to break it, it's never getting destroyed by you. So just build your house out of wood or something else. Don't use stone, all right? That's how you work around that. Cat-like appearance, again, very good for single player. Not too great for PvP because creepers, like the player creeper, this one here, can still explode. Doesn't matter if you're near them or not. And Nocturnal is nice too, right? It's just a slight night vision, and you just don't go in water and you're good. You can see in the night. So that's pretty awesome. I think it's probably one of the better PvE races. I think it's really good, like single player. All right, let's go to the next one, Floran. So this is like it's like a treant, like you're kind of like a tree. Green Thumb. You can grow plants at the cost of some food. So it's an ability, and it acts as bone meal. So you can just click something with your ability, and it uses your food, but it acts as bone meal. So that's pretty cool. I guess if you want to be a farmer, this is pretty sick. Photosynthesis basically means you are fed. If you're exposed to sunlight, your hunger will be replenished. Absorbing. You do 2 more damage when wet. That's pretty big. That means these guys, so you are going to see some aquatic races coming up soon. And these guys are probably the main contenders for fighting those aquatic races because they actually deal more damage when wet, whereas the aquatic races don't really have damage buffs when wet. So these guys actually are pretty good aquatic fighters. Flammable, you take twice as much damage from fire. Makes sense, right? You're pretty much a tree. Delicate, biomes that are too hot for you or too cold will give you slowness. So that's what we saw about the Snowman, right? The Snowman probably wants to live in the Arctic, but in this case, if you are in a Arctic biome, you will be slowed. There's no damage, you don't take damage, whatever, you're just slowed. So it's not a huge disadvantage at all. So you just stay in temperate biomes, forests, all that stuff. The Nether, you'll be slowed. You can still go to the Nether, you can still do your stuff in the Nether, you're just slow, right? Okay, this last one, I'm gonna try to pronounce that. Nectarivore. You can only consume honey bottles. So it means for food, you can consume honey bottles for food. But that's if you were like mining and you needed food, you would have to have honey bottles, but you can also just feed yourself by staying in the sunlight. Really cool race, in my opinion. Like one of the coolest and really well designed. I think this is a really awesome race for single player and multiplayer. Like if you think of the big disadvantages, if it was PvP, how do you kill a Floran? You would want it to be at night, right? So they don't get fed. And you would also want it to be in a hot biome, like a desert, or even the Arctic, something cold. And you would want to do some kind of fire damage. Now, on the opposite side, if you're a Floran, you would want to fight someone in the daytime, right? Photosynthesis. You'd also want to fight someone near water or while it was raining, too. That's also not too bad for you. So, with that being said, I'm actually going to put the Floran just above Feline a little bit, if I can. I think, especially in single player, you can pick where you want to live, and you can pick your fights and everything, and this is like amazing, right? Like it's super useful. You just live in a forest, live in a temperate climate. You never have to worry about food if you got a bed. Like that's so unique. If you're near water, you can fight people. You can just keep a bucket of water on you, throw it on the ground, and chill in the puddle and do more damage. Like, pretty awesome, right? Bucket of water counters. It does both of these at once. You do 2 more damage when wet. You take twice as much damage from fire. You just sit in water, and you're good. Okay, so another medium impact race we're going to look at is the Enderian. So the first ability they have, which you can basically spam out, is Ender Pearls, and you take no damage. So it's pretty awesome. I'll put a clip of it on screen. You can basically chuck Ender Pearls, you take no damage, and you have unlimited supply of them. So pretty awesome for getting around. Hydrophobia, as you can imagine, you take damage over time while in contact with water. That includes just normal water or while it's raining. Scared of gourds. You are afraid of pumpkins for good reason. I tested this. I didn't do anything. So I don't know if that actually does something or not. So I'm going to log that as not a real disadvantage. Slender body, you can reach blocks and entities further away. You definitely, I think you have +1 or +2 reach. You can reach pretty far. I just tested it out with a pickaxe and like some random stuff, but yes, you can reach further. So what it comes down for Enderian is teleportation. That's the big one. None of this. The +1 reach, I guess, is nice, especially for PvP, and also this is good for PvP, right? This is cool for like traveling around in survival. Yeah, that's cool, but like it doesn't really do anything. It just lets you travel faster. And this is also nice for survival for mining. But I think this is a PvP class for sure. I think it's one of the better if you're skilled with Ender Pearls and stuff, which people already use in PvP, especially like factions and stuff like that. This is like top tier for sure. So for that reason, I'm gonna put them at the top of PvP. I might put them behind Creeper, but I think for now they hold a little bit of an edge because if a Creeper comes up to you like a player, you can just Ender Pearl away. Or you can hit them before they can get to you, right? You just have extra range for swords and stuff like that. That's so huge for PvP. I don't think it's entirely super impactful for PvE, like single player, but I think it's a real contender for PvP. Next race is the Monke. Tree Swinger. Okay, so I've tried this before. It is like the Ender Pearl, but worse. So you throw out like a fishing line and you grapple to it. So you like swing to it, but you don't actually go where it landed. It's like a grapple, right? So if this class had no fall damage or something, or reduced fall damage, it would be better. But I just kept dying because I couldn't. It's just worse than the Ender Pearl, straight up. Vegetarian, disadvantage. Hydrophobia, you receive damage over time on contact with water. I don't know why that's there for the Monke. I will test that because I didn't notice that when I played it, but that seems very strange that the Monke takes damage in water. The comfort of the jungle, you have to sleep on a leaf, blocks, or above at Y level 75. The comfort of the jungle basically means it's like the Avian one. You have to sleep really high above the ground, right? So your house has to be kind of above the ground. Okay, I'm almost certain hydrophobia isn't supposed to be here. You're not supposed to take damage when contact with water. If it is, this is trashed here. Like it's really, really bad. Because the grapple sucks. It's not good at all. It's just worse than the Ender Pearl in every way. And you have to sleep. Like it's a very vanilla class, and I don't think there's much more for me to say. It's not a PvP class for sure. Like grappling sucks in PvP. Like what are you going to grapple to, especially if it's an open field? And you have to sleep in a jungle, or like not a jungle. You have to sleep above the ground, and you can't digest meat. This is going B tier for me, unfortunately. And it's going the bottom of B tier because I don't think I've played this class. This was like the second one I played, like seriously, and it was not good at all. So hopefully they give this one a buff or something. I don't know if they do that for this mod, but I hope they do because this is a cool concept, but it's just, this is better in almost every single way, except that I hope the Monke doesn't take damage with water and the Enderman race does, but yeah. I don't know. Regardless of the hydrophobia or not, the grapple is really hard to use and it's not that great. And it's just basically disadvantages, and the grapple doesn't make up for it at all. The next race we're going to look at is another medium impact race. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I'm just going to call it the slime race. Bouncy. You bounce on any block as if it were a slime block. I found this very annoying. Like it's just annoying because you're bouncing constantly. And this paired with it, which I'll get to next, it's just annoying. Bouncy is annoying. Some could see it as a positive. I saw it as a negative. It's up to you. Improved jump. Your slime heritage gives you improved leap. That sounds great, right? At the cost of reduced movement speed. So you get a little bit of extra jump, which is like the feline jump from a few races back, but you move slower, always. And moving slower is annoying, and it sucks. This passive, though, is a big one. When others would die, you shrink to half your size twice per life. You basically get 2 extra shots, 2 extra lives, pretty much. They have to kill you 3 times. That is super annoying. And I'm saying they because this is clearly aimed at like a PvP or a multiplayer scenario, because this isn't super useful for like single player, except for like Ender Dragon and like the Wither. Like it basically gives you 2 extra lives, which is really, really impactful. Slimy skin, you have the green translucent skin of a slime. Who cares? That doesn't do anything at all. It just makes you look green, so people can identify you as a slime on like if it's PvP, so they can see you're green and they're like, okay, this guy's gonna split into 2 others if he dies. Melting, slimes don't last very long in hot weather. You'll burn when exposed to sun and hot elements. That's huge. That's burning, right? That's not just you'll take damage over time. You are on fire. Just don't fight in the desert, or don't live in the desert, right? That's how you beat this. That's all you gotta do. So what makes the slime race is this passive right here, fragmentation, right? And I'll show a clip on screen of what that really does. But it's very useful, right? There's no, this is, you have to put up with just annoying stuff, right? Like if you think of the slime race, you put it down to one thing, you're slower, you jump higher, you're bouncing everywhere, you are annoying for everyone. You're annoying for yourself, and you're annoying for the enemies that are trying to kill you, because you are just an annoying race. And that's all the slimes are good for. So if I was going to put this on a tier list, I would be inclined to put this in PvP somewhere, because I feel like that's where the fragmentation has its most like use. So yeah, it's either like PvP, but like bottom of PvP. I think that the passive is useful, but everything else is so annoying. I personally could not keep up with it. If you're okay with being annoyed, like with everything about yourself, then sure. I mean, some people live like that. Like, you know, I'm annoyed with everything about myself, but I still can't handle the slime. Other than that, if it's not going at the bottom of PvP, it's going into trash, because the only good thing about it is you get 2 extra lives. And that's like very rare. Think of how often you die, right? Oh, thank God I didn't die. But then think of how annoying it is to bounce on everything forever, right? That's my opinion, though. I think it's bottom of PvP, and if it doesn't belong in PvP, it goes into trash. All right, now we're getting to the high impact races, which completely change how you play the game. Now, what I like about the mod pack, right, the Origin SMP mod pack, is it provides avenues for you to basically play with these races and not feel like you're at a crazy disadvantage. And I'll get to that in a second. So the Merling are the aquatic race. I love living underwater. I love like underwater architecture, all that stuff in Minecraft. This was my go-to race, and it was my favorite race. And definitely there's some bias, but I think if you like living underwater and you like in a multiplayer environment, living at the bottom of an ocean, knowing you're safe, knowing no one's gonna go down there to like check it out because the whole house is gonna be underwater, it's awesome. But let's get through it. So gills, you can breathe underwater, but not on land. Right? It's the opposite, right? People can breathe on land, and they have bubbles when they go underwater. They have a certain amount of breath they can hold. It's the opposite. So you can breathe perfectly underwater, but when you go on land, you have a certain amount of time before you start taking damage. This one is just beautiful. Wet eyes, your vision is perfect underwater. That is so nice. It's so nice. It's like it's better than night vision potions. It's so nice. Aqua affinity, you break blocks underwater as others would on land. Of course, that makes sense. That's just a balance passive, which makes sense, because why would you pick it if you break stuff slower underwater? Fins, your underwater speed is increased. It's definitely noticeable. You swim very, very quickly. Like water, when underwater, you do not sink to the ground unless you want to. It's like you're flying, right? Like you can go up and down at your will. You don't sink, which is it's a huge quality of life change. I didn't notice how impactful this was until I picked this race. So what I was talking about at the beginning was with the mod pack with OriginsSMP, there are structures, there are mines, there are ravines underwater. There are many, many ways to just live underwater. You don't have to worry, oh, what if I go mining and then there's air pockets because the water doesn't carry down? Like the ravines that are underwater are completely open, so you don't have to worry about it. And you basically fly, right? Like you just sink down and you mine and then you go back up. Like it's so awesome. It completely changes how you play the game. So for me, is there bias on this race? Absolutely, but it's going in S tier for me. It completely changes how you play the game. You are arguably the most safe underwater, and no one's going to mess with you underwater. Think of all these PvP races too, right? No one's Endermen. They going underwater? Not a chance, right? All of these guys suck underwater. They're not doing anything underwater. They're just gonna die. Obviously, I mean, everyone would die. They would drown. But if they, assuming they had, you know, water breathing and all that stuff and night vision, they still would not. Like, what are these guys gonna do in PvP? There's not a chance. There's not a chance any of these people stand a chance against a Merling, especially underwater. Like, if Merlings have a town underwater, no one's touching it. No one's touching it but another Merling. In my opinion, that's what makes it S tier, is it completely changes the single-player experience, and it's also very safe and strong in a multiplayer experience as well. Okay, Inchling is the next high-impact race of the Origins mod. So what is an Inchling? And this passive kind of explains what it is. So they are 4 times smaller than a regular person. They have 5 less hearts, so half the health, 50% more attack speed, 25% less attack range, and 1 less build range. What does this tell you? If it's not screaming PvP, it should be. Because PvE, right, it doesn't matter your size against like a zombie. They're going to hit the hitbox. Like, that's just how it's programmed. But against another player, you are 4 times, you're incredibly hard to hit, super tiny. You swing super fast. Yes, you have less hearts, but there's ways to mitigate that because you can wear like armor and stuff like that. So because you're so small, if you're with a group of friends, your base can be super tiny. Like, it can just be super small, like a one square entrance. Like, you know, you can make, there's lots of creativity. You can make like a little hive kind of thing. There's lots of creativity to be had with this passive here. Nimble, you're immune to thorns and velocity-based damage. I think when it says velocity-based damage, it means like slamming into a wall with an Elytra and falling. That sounds like velocity-based damage. I don't know why they said it that way. That's kind of confusing for someone who maybe doesn't understand what the concept of like velocity is in Minecraft. I'll test it out, I guess. There'll be some gameplay on the screen. If velocity means fall damage, you'll see it. I'll test out some stuff. This is basically the spider race passive, which is like one of the major things they have, and it's just included in Inchling. So to me, this is a PvP race, but it's very annoying, right? Like, it'd be very hard to deal with like a bunch of mini dudes running up on you. Like, you just couldn't hit them all. Even though they have less HP, they're very hard to hit. They're fast. Like, to me, it's definitely, this is much more oriented on PvP than like single player. So for that reason, I'm gonna put the Inchling just above the Arachnids because, as you saw, they have climbing. Right? They just have that passive, and they can also kind of like get through. If the Arachnids set up like a base underground, they'd have to fill it up with cobwebs. Otherwise, these guys can just like scoot through because they're like 1 block high. So they can just scoot around all the cobwebs and stuff. And I believe they have, yeah, and they have extra attack speed. Almost, they have 50% more attack speed. So they could break the spider webs faster than anyone else. So that's kind of like a counter to the Arachnids. And by that logic, you know, these people lose to them, etc., etc. But think of how good the creeper active is. Like, explode and do high damage in an AoE environment. These guys would get destroyed. You had a squad of Inchlings pull up to the creeper people, they'd be annihilated. They would be destroyed. Not a chance they would be able to beat one of these guys. No way. All right, let's move on to the next one. Piglins. Another high impact. I think all the rest of the ones are high impact. So they've got this big passive here. Golden tools deal extra damage, and golden armor has extra protection. Golden equipment lasts much longer, but non-golden and non-netherite equipment breaks faster. So it looks like netherite equipment is still okay. You just don't get the extra bonuses. Netherite armor gives you a small speed boost. So yeah, these guys make use of gold, which is cool, right? Like, gold is garbage. No one ever uses it, and these guys use it, and it seems like it's probably around diamond or better. Piglin neutrality. Piglins do not attack you unless provoked. Brutes will still attack you on sight. That's something to do with the nether, and I believe your natural spawn will be in the nether, so I skipped a bit, but you spawn in the nether. And obviously, as I said, with the extra biomes and all that stuff that the mod pack includes of OriginsSMP, that's not a problem. There's trees, there's cobblestone, there's all the resources you need in the nether. Crossbow master, you deal 75% more damage with crossbows. That's almost double damage with crossbows. That's definitely, like, that should be your primary weapon. It should be a golden sword and a crossbow for sure. Homesick. When outside the nether, you zombify, becoming undead, immune to fire but slower. So you might say, okay, that sucks. Why would I ever you know, if it's multiplayer, why would I ever go above ground to PvP or to fight other people? But there's other, I'm gonna spoil a bit, but there's a few more nether races. So there's a whole environment of nether races. It's very unlikely you go to the overworld to fight people. You're probably, the PvP is going to be in the nether if you're picking Piglin. Carnivore, your diet is restricted to meat. You can't eat vegetables. I don't know how hard food is to come across in the nether, but I feel like it's hard. So this might be tough. This might be a tough challenge because like growing a farm is probably the most consistent way to get meat. You'd have to find a way. You'd have to be creative and figure out a way to work with this passive. Flabby, you have 2 less hearts of health than humans. And Soul Spooked, you are afraid of soul fire becoming weakened when near it. That's kind of interesting as well, because that is another thing, soul fire. So that's definitely a disadvantage for sure. 2 less hearts, that's also a disadvantage. This is a disadvantage. This is not a disadvantage, just a balance thing. Like the fish people, like when they go out of water, they have to have, so this is just balance. I think this is neutral. This is neutral. This is advantage. This is advantage. And this is it's just a balance change. It's not really like, it's just saying golden tools are basically diamonds. You can get them earlier, I guess, but it's in a PvP environment. I don't think you'd be using, I think you'd still be going for netherite. Same with everybody, right? I don't know what I would rate this one, honestly. I have no idea. It's very unique, and it's just basically a different way of playing the game, but there's no real, like, non-netherite equipment breaks faster. Like, everyone at the end is going to have netherite, right? Like, everyone's going to have it. Everyone's going to want it. So these guys are just going to be on par. Like, the bonus goes to gold. It doesn't go to netherite. If it was to netherite, these guys would be really good for, like, PvP, but they're not. The bonus doesn't go on netherite, it's just gold. I think this is a PvE race. And I think the Piglins are going to like B. Not bottom of B because the Monke sucks. But I think they might even go behind the Avians. The Avians are just reduced fall damage. These guys like, yeah, I think they're like probably on par. I don't think they're that good. Navigating the nether, can you imagine navigating as a Piglin? Like, especially early? Like, if you were the Avian and you spawned in the nether, it would be like literally objectively better because you could go from like huge, like, huge cliffs to other cliffs. It'd be so hard because you're not immune to fire, right? So you still take fire damage when you're in the nether. So you can't go in the lava either as Piglin, which sucks. Blazeborn. Fire immunity, immune to all types of fire damage. That's really awesome. It means you can swim in lava. That makes sense, right? The other Piglin should, like, it doesn't make sense why you would go Piglin over this. Like, you want fire immunity. If you're in the nether, you want to be immune to fire so you can, like, travel it like it'd be water. Your natural spawn would be the nether, right? When on fire, you deal additional damage to your attacks. That's pretty big, right? If you're on fire, which there's fire everywhere, or lava, if you sit in lava, you do extra damage. Hot-blooded due to your hot body, venoms burn up, making you immune to poisons and hunger status effects. That's also pretty, that's a bonus for sure. I don't know how common that is, but that's definitely a bonus. Hydrophobia, you've received damage over time while in contact with water. Of course, that makes sense. These guys are just, I think, strictly better than the Piglins, right? Like, these guys make sense to be a nether. These are like, if you want to be in the nether, you go Blazeborn, right? You're immune to fire. You do extra damage when you're on fire. You just set up like a flaming like castle, like a flaming base and stuff like that. The only way people would beat you is like water, like dumping water in the nether, and that doesn't really work. So yeah, this looks like a crazy like PvP race. This looks like, especially being immune to poisons, that's a big PvP thing as well. You're on fire. I think this is a really good PvP race in the nether. Like, this would be the best nether PvP race you could have. So for that reason, I'm gonna put them here. I still think this is like the best. But as far as nether goes, this is like the best PvP race you could be if you're picking a nether start so far that I've seen. Okay, there's only 3 more. Zombified. Intimidating presence. Your presence scares away villagers and attracts village guards towards you. That's a disadvantage, right? Who cares? You don't want to, like, villagers being scared away is like, that's bad, and then attracts village guards. That's also bad. If you punch a villager, they would turn into a zombie villager. Okay, I hope zombies don't attack you, or they like follow you or something, because that'd be cool. Zombie Zen. Many common mobs will not attack you unless you attack them first. Okay. I assume this is coded as if you punch the villager and it turns into a zombie villager. That's a new mob, and it doesn't register that you attack them. That's cool. It's not really... You could like have like a horde of zombies, but you'd have to be fighting in a village. Like, this is very niche. Buff spawners. Your presence causes spawners to output many more mobs. Sturdy skin. Okay, so we're seeing this one again. Even without wearing armor, your skin provides natural protection. Okay. Hot-blooded. Due to your hot body, venoms burn up, making you immune to poison. Okay, we've seen that one before. Sleeping is for the living. You can't sleep, and others can't sleep if they're near you. I'm melting. You automatically burn in the daylight if you aren't wearing a helmet or pumpkin. Okay, so to me, this screams like raid boss, kind of. Like, this is a raid boss. This is like something you pick to like mess with your friends. You seem like if you are near mobs, like if it is nighttime, you are like crazy. If you're underground near mob spawners, you are also, you just generate allies. But this doesn't really, like, this is so, this is so like niche. Like, you know, like when, okay, you don't, scaring away villagers counter products with punching a villager. They're running away from you. It makes it harder for you to punch them. Like if you're under attack and you're in a village and they start running away from you and you got the temple guard, the village guards on you, that is just harder for you to get this. That's just harder. This one is pretty much irrelevant. Like that is so niche. That is so like rare to ever happen. Sturdy skin is good. Hot blooded is good. I don't know. It's very weird. I don't think this is bad. Like it's not trash because there's still some usefulness. But I think this goes the bottom of B. Like this is so weird. Like it's not really. There's like counter synergy within the kit, and it's very like rare. Like the only good things are these two: sturdy skin and hot blooded. That's just good for PvP. Good for like for single player, for fighting, for exploring. That's just what that's good for. Other than that, it's pretty weird, I gotta say. Okay, we're on to the second last one, the Phantom. The Phantom has an ability where you switch between being a Phantom and a normal person. So keep that in mind before you read all this, right? So your skin is translucent. Your skin is translucent all the time. When you're in normal form, it just helps other players identify what race you are. Phasing, while Phantomized, so you use your ability to turn into a Phantom, you can walk through solid material, everything except obsidian. Okay, there'll be a clip of that on screen right now, seeing what happens. While you're Phantomized, though, I'm going to jump down a little bit. While you're Phantomized, it causes you to become hungry. So you can't do it for very long. It's like sprinting, except you get more hungry that way. Invisibility. While Phantomized, you're invisible. Nothing can see you. It's like taking an invisibility potion. So that's a bonus for sure. Photoallergic. You begin to burn in the daylight if you're not invisible. So you can be in the daylight, but you have to be invisible. That's interesting too. That's a cool workaround. Okay, I already mentioned fast metabolism. When you activate your ability, you become more hungry, so you have to have lots of food on you. Fragile. You have 3 less hearts of health than humans. The fact that if you and like a bunch of your friends are phantoms, you can just go into the enemy base. You can literally phase through walls. Like think of factions, right? Which there's servers for this, by the way, if you didn't know. You can phase through. You can just go in anyone's base as long as it's not obsidian. You can just go through their base. You're also invisible, so you can do like recon. Like you can go inside and do reconnaissance, look around, see what's up before you attack it. Being a phantom at night sounds scary. Like I would be scared constantly about phantoms at nighttime. This would be scary to be on a faction server and knowing like the like top like 1 or 2 factions are phantom servers. That'd be scary because at nighttime you are done. And it's even in daytime too, which is really cool too. You begin to burn in the daylight if you're not invisible. So you can, as long as you have food, you can just be invisible. That's really awesome. I think this might be another S tier for, but it's very PvP like centered, right? The invisibility and all this stuff doesn't really matter in single player. Like in single player, you can just break anything you want. So you can just break blocks. You don't need to be. I mean, this is a convenience, but who cares? Being invisible, it's whatever. Like I guess mobs can de-aggro from you sometimes. Like sometimes it doesn't even work. Photoallergic isn't even bad. Like it gives you literally in the description a way to work around it, which is cool too. You just need lots of food, right? Phantoms with lots of food. I think Phantoms might be S tier. So I'm actually like the tier list is kind of messing me up because I think they are S tier, but for single player they're definitely really good. Like they're definitely like top A or like around A, but they're not like extremely useful. They're just quality of life. But for PvP, I don't think there's anything that beats this. Like imagine there's a fight, you just turn invisible, you just leave. Like the people like gank you or something, like you're on your way to doing something, you just turn invisible, you just dip. That's so awesome. I think that's super cool. I think this is probably, if there was an S tier, maybe I should have done a PvP and whatever, but this video is probably running long already. I think this is the best PvP race you could be. The last one, the Wyvern, I've played this one. This is the one I picked on my second or third playthrough. So its ability is you can hurl a fireball, and it does a decent amount of damage. Like, you can two-shot pretty much any base level mob with the fireball. That's really, really good. It's basically an extra attack, so really, really nice. Nether Inhabitant, you spawn in the Nether, of course. That makes sense. Fire immunity, you're immune to all types of fire damage. Makes sense. Hydrophobia, you take damage in water. Makes sense. Carnivore, your diet is restricted to meat. You can't eat vegetables. This one is, I hate to say it, I don't think it's a high impact. The only thing that makes it high impact is your natural spawn is the Nether. The fact that you can hurl fireballs, you're immune to fire, you take damage in water, and you just eat meat, that's not that bad, right? You can definitely work around this. This is a huge, huge bonus. The fireball does a lot of damage, and there's races who take extra damage from fire. So you can one-shot stuff with this fireball. And you're immune to fire. Like, for single player and multiplayer, you could just leave the Nether if you wanted to. It's not like you take damage in the daytime or at night. Like, rain might be annoying, but like, you're chilling. Like, I think this is what I picked, and I definitely played a lot of time on this. So again, I might be biased because I also played a lot of time on the Merling, but I think this is S tier as well. I don't think it's as good as the Merling, but it's so like, this is super strong. I think I like, it's underrated how strong the fireball is. So you can basically just go to the overworld and hang out there, and you are probably one of the best races above ground. It's definitely a crush that you start in the Nether, because this fireball does nothing to most of the Nether races, right? Most Nether races are immune to fire. But if you move above ground, this could be deadly, I think, against other players and mobs. Like, throwing fireballs that burn enemies is huge. And I believe that is it. The last option is random. So if you want to just pick something random, you can go with random, and that's it. And we're back at human. All right, everyone, this is the final tier list. Thank you so much if you watched all the way up to this point. And if you're joining us from some other point, aka the beginning, and you skipped all the details and stuff like that, hello and welcome, I guess. I am not going to go over the details, obviously. If you are interested in why something is ranked where it is, or what the ability of something is, I will name all of these. So I'll name them all from top to bottom, so you can go ahead and go back and watch it. Oh, this one looked interesting to me. I'm going to watch that breakdown of what it is. Hopefully you can understand why this will not go, or it couldn't go, in the OriginsSMP mod pack review that I plan on doing in a few weeks. There's just too much information, and it's so important. I didn't even cover the classes yet. This is just the races. There's classes. There's like eight or nine classes that also, you pick your race, then you pick your class. So there's so much stuff. Maybe I'll do the classes in another video if this video does okay, or people are somewhat interested, but we'll see. Another thing I would like to clarify is PvP is not a C tier. It's a completely different tier. It just looks weird, but PvP, I would say these guys up here, which I will name, these four are S tier, and then bottom, and then it starts going B and then lower to B, and this is the worst at the bottom of B. So this is not a C tier, it's just PvP. Like, these ones are extremely good in PvP, and they're not fantastic in PvE or single player, so that's why they have their own like category. Okay, starting at the top of S tier, we have the Merlings, and the Merlings breathe underwater. They can only breathe water, but they have some absolutely crazy bonuses to living underwater, and they're super fun to play if you like living underwater. Some people may be like, oh, well, that must be really hard to mine underwater. Well, the actual mod pack, the OriginsSMP mod pack, has a lot of installed extra mods, like the biomes you go, and other terrain modifying mods that puts the options for Merlings to mine underwater and makes it completely feasible. Underwater, there's ravines like you'd see above ground, like huge ravines with ore veins all the way through, and they're underwater, completely swallowed up by the water, so Merlings have no trouble going through them, mining the resources they need, all that stuff. The only difficult thing with Merlings, I think, would be going to the Nether. There's definitely some workarounds, but that involves some creativity to figure out how to go to the Nether and get Netherite or whatever. The next S tier, I think, is Wyverns. These guys are really strong because of their ability, which is their active ability, which by default, I will say, because I'm sure I'll get a comment, is G on the keyboard. And it shoots a fireball, and the fireball can two-shot almost any regular mob. It lights them on fire, and if you hit the ground, it also lights the ground on fire. That ability alone makes them an extremely strong contender for just fighting any mobs, players or mobs. They're also immune to a variety of debuffs, so they're immune to like venoms, like poisons. They're also immune to the thing that makes your hunger go down super fast. I forget what that one's called. They're also immune to fire, any type of flame damage, lava, all that stuff. And if you wear a helmet, you're immune to rain. So these guys above ground in the overland are menaces. If it's PvP or just PvE, like you do whatever you want. These guys spawn in the nether, and that's probably the weirdest thing about them is you spawn in the nether, so it's kind of might be harder for you to get to the overland. But if you get to the overland, you're gonna have no issues, really. The only thing that'll bother you is rain. In the A tier, we have the Floran and the Feline. The Florans are like treants, like kind of your like half tree. You get fed if you're in the sunlight. You can expend hunger to bone meal plants. They just have a lot of bonuses to living in like forests or like kind of like moderate temperature biomes. They have a lot of bonuses and only a few drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks that makes this Wyvern so strong is they're weak to fire. So there's a lot of things like these two, I think, maybe the Avian, I know the Slime, the Snowman. There's a lot of things here that are weak to fire. Take double damage from fire. Felines are it's just a quality of life improvement, really. They don't really have any downsides, except that they have one less heart. They can jump higher. They don't take fall damage, no matter how high the fall is. Creepers run away from you, and you can see in the night, right? The only disadvantage of Feline is you have one less heart. So if you can keep up with that, this is like literally just it's just a stronger version of like what the human would be. Like there's just benefits, really. In B, we have the Shulk, the Avian, the Piglin, the Monke, and the Zombiefied. The Shulks are kind of like tanks. You have extra inventory. You have 9 extra slots of inventory, and when you die, you get to keep your inventory. You have extra armor as well. You have stronger arms, so you can break like stone with your fists. The downsides are they need more food to survive, and they can't hold shields. The Avians are like the chicken, like when if you fall from a height, you like slowly like float down. The Avians also run a little bit faster than the other races as well. They have like speed 1 constantly. Downsides are you got to sleep in a high place and you can't eat any meat. The Piglin is right here. It's just kind of a weird race. It uses gold, right? Gold is like equal to diamond for the Piglin. Crossbows deal like almost double damage, but they have a lot of downsides. They can only eat meat. They have 2 less hearts than humans. They're afraid of soulfire, and they spawn in the nether, so that's kind of weird, right? So if you're near soulfire, you become weak and you start taking damage. If you leave the nether, you become a zombie. You are immune to fire in the overworld. You are like just a zombie, but you're really slow, so it's kind of a nuisance. So these guys are like interesting for sure, but they're not necessarily good or bad. The Monke, or the Monke, is interesting. You throw a grapple, and wherever the grapple hits, you kind of like swing to, but it's just worse than the Ender Pearl. Like that's what these guys' special ability is, but I'll get to that in a second. I don't think the monkeys are very good at all. I think they're really, really weak. The grapple sucks. They can't eat meat, and they have to sleep really high above the ground. Their one positive is the grapple, and it's not good enough for those 2 negatives. The bottom of B tier, I have Zombiefied. It's basically you're playing like a mob. Like, have you ever wanted to play like a zombie boss? That's what you're playing as. That's like the best way I can put it. You scare away like villagers and stuff, but you can like turn villagers into zombie villagers. Like hostile mobs won't attack you unless you attack them first. You have sturdy skin, so you have a little bit more armor. I don't know. Like you also can't sleep, right? And you automatically burn in the daylight, and you spawn above ground. So I don't know. It's an interesting race for sure, but it's very difficult, I think, to make it work. Okay, at the top of the PvP tier, we have the Phantoms, and the Phantoms can turn invisible on command. That is pretty strong in and of itself, but they also can move through objects. So if it's like faction server or something like that, and they have a base, you can just move through. If you're Phantomized, which is their ability, you could just move through. You can just walk in the base and just start fighting them in there. You can also fight people while you're invisible. It's just, I think it's very strong. Like this is probably the strongest PvP. If you're playing a multiplayer server and you pick a Phantom and it's nighttime, because they do burn in the daytime, unless they're invisible, ironically, so they can just be invisible all the time and not, there's like no downsides except I think they lose hunger faster when they are in their invisible form. Really, really interesting class. Really lots of potential, and I think extremely strong for PvP. Not so strong for like single player. Like it doesn't really matter that much. The next class we're gonna look at is the Enderian. These guys right here. They're basically like Endermen. Your ability is you could throw an Ender Pearl. You have unlimited Ender Pearls. You can throw an Ender Pearl. You take no damage when it hits the ground. You obviously take damage when you're in water. And you can reach, you have an extra like +1 reach, and that applies for combat too. So you just get extra reach. Very good PvP class in my opinion. You can teleport. People already use Ender Pearls in PvP. I think unless it's raining, these guys are probably like top tier. These guys are the Blazeborn, and for some reason the Blazes don't have the fireballs. The Wyverns do, but the Blazes are immune to fire. Your natural spawn is in the Nether. When you're on fire, you deal extra damage with your attacks. So probably the best of the PvP classes if it's in the Nether. And this is a Nether class. This is a Nether class. This is a Nether class. There's another one too. Maybe this is another class? I'm not sure. And you take damage while you're in water, but you're also immune to a bunch of diseases, venoms, poisons, and the hunger status effect as well. And at the bottom of S or A tier, like I said, is the Creeper. These guys really don't have any downsides, rather than if you're near a cat, you take damage over time. Their ability is they cause a Creeper explosion that doesn't destroy blocks and just does a load of damage to anybody nearby. So they just have like an AoE explosion that they can do on command, like at any time. It's very strong. Next, I have the Inchling. These things are like super tiny people. They're 4 times the size smaller than a person. They swing faster, they move faster, but they have less reach. So pretty good for PvP. You can make super small bases that are only like 1 block high. Pretty cool. This is the Arachnids. These are the spider people. They are good if you are in a cave system and you're underground and you put cobwebs everywhere. They can tell when people are in their cobwebs. They can climb any surface, like, you know, like a spider does. Nichely good in PvP. The Elytra are similar. They always have Elytra wings. You don't actually have to equip them. And their ability is they jump really high in the air, so you can kind of glide. It's cool for exploring. They do also extra damage to players and entities when they're in the air. So it's like if you're really good, this is a lot of skill, and there's a lot of bonuses if you're really good at the Elytra. I am not. And I assume a lot of people aren't comfortable fighting in the air. Like, you're in the air and the people are on the ground. So that's why they go at the bottom of PvP. Now, the worst PvP class, in my opinion, that I was debating on putting in the trash can is the Slime race. Every single block you walk on acts as if it was a slime block. So you bounce on everything. You get extra high jump, but you're also permanently slower. Its big thing that makes it strong, you have 2 lives. You split and you like become smaller and they have to kill you again, and you become smaller and they have to kill you a last time. So you have 2 times per life, basically 2 extra lives. So that's really strong for PvP, but that's like their only thing. They burn if they're in any hot weather at all, and they're also weak to fire, so whatever. And then, as I said, in Trash Can, we've got the Snowman, which you basically have to live in the Arctic. Your snowballs do extra damage, which it basically do nothing. And then the Human, which has no traits at all. But there you go. That is the quick rundown of the tier list. If you would like more details on any of the classes, you can wait until I say their name and then go back in the video and watch the part where I actually go over what they do, and you can read what their stats are and stuff like that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I think I can save this tier maker, so I'll put it in the description if you want to make a tier list as well, you can do that. And I guess I will see you guys. Either I'm going to do the class video next. If this video does okay and people are like somewhat interested in it, I will do the class video. And then after, I will do the actual full OriginsSMP mod pack review. So that's it, everyone. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.